So today we are going to be talking about the dashboard, mainly the control panel, management review, and then I'm also going to talk about reports because reports is related to the control panel and management review. What happens with these two tools on the dashboard is through the control panel, this is where employees get access to their processes. That's the number one thing to know about the control panels. Once a control panel is assigned, the person who's logging into TouchStone will see their position title right here, like you're seeing Manager of Administration and Finance. And when they go to that control panel, they're then taken to the processes that they're accountable for. So all of these processes that you see here have been put on the job description over here for the Manager of Administration and Finance. So right here, if I click on this organization chart, whatever processes I've linked to this box, so I'm linking processes from the 4 functions list over here to this position, whatever processes are here are going to be the exact ones that will show up in the control panel. So through the job description or through the 4 key functions, somebody can go to a process and they can build it using the process tools. So create the documentation. Once the process has been built, the documentation is done, then it becomes extremely useful here on the dashboard. So the control panels give employees access to the processes that they're accountable for. They need access, number one, to be able to view and use the documentation. So the number one reason they would need a control panel and need access to their processes is so they can use them. So using them means they can be trained with them or in them. They can reference them if they need retraining or they've forgotten how to do something. They can use the content. So if there's a checklist or a form or something that needs to be completed, they can go through the control panel here to that process and complete that checklist and complete that form. So the using of these processes, whether it be just for training purposes or if there's actually things that need to be completed, the using of them is paramount to the success of the process. One of the things that I don't like to hear, but I hear often, is managers or owners of companies coming back and saying, well, nobody's using the processes. You know, we put in all this time and effort to document it, to get it all in TouchStone. Now no one's using them. That is completely up to you as the owner or the manager, whether people are going to use them or not. It's not up to them. It's up to you. So you have to require that they be used. And it takes sometimes a culture shift or a paradigm shift. One of the easiest ways to get process used is to use them for training. So new employee training is a no-brainer. That's easy because you get a brand new employee, you bring them in, you set them in front of the dashboard, and I'm going to show you an example of this. And that employee goes through those processes and learns them, and then thereby learning the work that they're accountable for. So new employee training is there's no excuse not to have employees using the processes when they're being trained. And if you set it off that way when they first are onboarded, then it's more likely that employee will continue to use them, particularly if the manager requires it, their manager. So new employee training should be pretty easy to allow you to implement and get employees using processes. For existing employees, it takes some pushing. So what it takes is for the manager to sit down with the employees and say, these are your processes in TouchStone. We're going to start to discuss them periodically. There's things within this one and that one that I want people to be using. So the manager sets the stage for this and makes it a part of the culture by bringing it up all the time, showing it to the employees and requiring them to use it, requiring them to look at it. And it can be as simple as saying to this team of people down here, once a week in a meeting, we're going to talk about the processes that are in each one of your job descriptions here. So I want you to go into the dashboard, go to the first process on the list, And if it's the same position and 5 different people, that's a little easier. But even if it's 4 different positions and they each have different job descriptions, you can say to Sally, I want you to review the production changes process. Go just look at the documentation, spend 10 minutes looking at it, and then in our meeting on Friday, we're just going to talk about it. So you can spend 10, 15 minutes of your department meeting just discussing how work is done, discussing the documentation, discussing the step-by-steps, the procedures, what's in TouchStone. Oftentimes, just a little bit like that helps employees to, first of all, see that this is very important to the business overall, and give them that push to start to use it. So let's talk about the control panel first, and then I'll discuss management review. So to assign control panels, we went over this last week. You just go to account administration over here and go to user accounts. Then you're going to choose the user from the user list. And then you go to control panel, which is right above this question mark icon. And then you select the position that this person should have a control panel for. So you just simply have to ask yourself, which position does this person fill? Which box on the org chart? And then you select it and assign them a control panel. So I'm going to go back over here. Once the control panel is assigned, then when they log in with their username and password, they're going to see it here in this control panel screen. If I select this control panel, the first thing that's important to know is that you can make groups out of all the processes. So I have a group called management, I have a group called finance. I'm just going to collapse the groups over here so you see all that I have. So I've got one called management, finance, human resources, admin. I just collapsed them so you could just see the groups, but if I clicked on one, then you would see the processes that are within it. The groups are created with this toolbar item right here. So if I hit create group, then I would just put in the name of the group, and then I hit save. So super easy. So the new group is right here at the top. I can also edit group names once I've added them. So you just click edit group, you hit the drop down here, you go to the group that you want to edit, and then you type in the new name of the group, and then you hit save. You can also delete groups, which is this little red button. So it's pretty intuitive. Create group, edit group, delete group. If you delete a group and it has processes in it, it's just going to throw those processes back to the default list. So it's not going to remove the processes from the control panel. It just puts them back into what we call the default list, which then makes it so you can drag and drop them into other groups. Groups are usually by subject area, like these I have here, management, finance. These are subjects. They can also be by timing. So things you do monthly, quarterly, weekly, annually. I saw a control panel the other day, and it was for a company that had technicians that would go out into the field and do things at clients' location or homes. So they had groups that were by timing. So right at 8 a.m. when everyone arrives, they had 8 a.m. was a group. So they just added a group, and they just put literally the time, 8, just like that. And then inside that group, they put the things that the technician did when they first arrived. So right at 8 a.m., it was things like truck inspection, getting all your paperwork. Then they had 9 a.m., which was like the first appointment that they would have for the day. And then they had the groups in there all the way to the end of the day with the things that they had to do at the end of the day. I thought it was, it was a good use of the groups for their particular industry. So they can be by timing or by subject area, like management is. The groups are all drag and drop. So you saw me just drag this one up and down. I can move this one to the top. So once you've created your groups, you can put them in, whatever order you like. The processes are also drag and drop. So I can take a process from one group and move it into the other, like this. So everything is drag and drop inside of the control panel. Every position or person user in TouchStone can organize their processes individually. So I'm going to go here just to explain to you what that means. So here we're back in account administration here. So let's say that Sam and Sally were both salespeople. They have the same processes that they do. They're both assigned to the sales person on the org chart. And when Sam logs in, he sees the sales position processes. When he goes to use them on the dashboard, whatever he does is unique to him. So Sally can't see his and Sam can't see hers. The only one who can see the work that Sam or Sally is doing is themselves and their manager. So Sam can go in and organize his processes by groups any way that he sees fit or as directed by the manager, and Sally can do that too. So when each one of them logs in, they're going to see the same processes, but their groups might be different just based on the schedule they have, or if you want to leave it up to the employee, it could be personal preference, how they like to organize their processes. So it's done individually. A manager can go in through management review right here. I can go to Sally's position here, and I can organize her processes for her. So I can create a group and edit groups and move the processes up and down into the groups. When she logs in, she's going to see how I've organized them. Now, she could go in and change that organization if she wanted to, so we don't fix it one way or the other. So either the employee can organize their processes into groups or the manager can do it for them. The processes that are here in this control panel are the same processes that are on the job description. So if I was to go to the job description here, so I'm going to go to this one, Manager of Admin Finance. And if I was to remove a process just by clicking this little remove button, then this budget creation process would be removed from the control panel for this position. So what you see in those control panels is all controlled here by the job description. If I add a process to this job description, I'm just going to add one here quickly for fun. Save. So this process has now been added to this job description. If we scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see it. Now if I go here back to the dashboard and I click on this control panel, you're going to see that this process has been added to the control panel as well. So the job description and the control panel for that position on the org chart are going to have the same processes, and how you add them and remove them from the control panel has to do with adding and removing them from the job description. If you have processes in the default list like this one shows, because it's not been put into a group yet, I just added it to this job description. Once I move this down into a group and then I just refresh, then that default list disappears. And it will only reappear if you delete a whole group, then it's going to throw all these into the default list. Or if you add a new process to the job description, you'll see it in the default list. Remember this whole collapse expand over here, because sometimes it helps if you have a position that has a lot of processes in it for whatever reason. Then if you collapse and you can see the groups more succinctly, this is also an easier way to reorganize the groups. You see I'm just pulling these up and down, and I don't have to drag the whole set of processes up and down. I can just drag it up and down this way. So that's the basic functionality of this screen, and I would highly suggest organizing your processes or encouraging your employees to, because when they do that, it starts to become more familiar. It starts to get them to feel like they're kind of owning this to a certain degree, that they're putting it in a way that makes sense for them. So let's talk about the functionality inside the control panel related to processes. So when I select a process from the control panel here, this is the one-on-one meeting process for managers. What I see is the content that's been built, the documentation that's been built in this process. Here on the dashboard screen, I can't edit or change anything here. The content, so the work plan here, and I just clicked on this work plan, this is what I mean by the content. This is the step-by-step set of tasks, expectations. This is the documentation that's been created over on the process tools page over here for how to do one-on-one meetings. In this view from the dashboard, I can't edit or change anything here. I just see what was created. So if I was looking at these tasks and said, number 3 needs to change because we don't proceed through the meeting agenda anymore, I would need to go over to the 4 key functions here, find this process in the 4 key functions. If I didn't know right where it was, I could search for it, but it's right here. Select it from here, and then go to the work plan, and then edit the tasks. So this is where things are edited and changed. So you have to have the right access to be able to do it. Here's where I can edit and change it. When I go back here to the dashboard, everything that's done on the process tools page then appears here. So if we go back to this work plan, then you'll see that task I added down here at the bottom. So just remember that this is the place where things are used. Over here is the place where they're created. So when I select a work plan like this one, I might do that here on the dashboard if I'm being trained for the first time. So if my manager's teaching me how to do one-on-one meetings, I might be required to go here to this work plan and read these tasks, study them, understand them, memorize them if that was necessary, practice doing this by going through the 1 through 6. When I felt like I had this, it was easy enough for me, I could put in the save as done. I could even make notes right here if I wanted to. And then when I save this, you see this completed date and time that it was saved. Then it also creates this little print button here. When you select the print button, it actually creates a PDF that looks like this. So when anything is completed here in the dashboard, saved, this button will appear. And that allows you to create a PDF that you could print or download somewhere else if you needed to. So in this example, if I was being trained in this process, I might do this just to indicate to my manager, this is easy enough, I got it, it's done. Another reason that somebody may review a work plan like this one is just to remind themselves of what to do. If there's work that all of us do that we don't do every day, maybe not even every month, maybe not every 3 months, when you have work like that, you oftentimes forget how to do it. And you all know what I mean. You can't remember how to do the details of everything, particularly if it's not something you do very often and it's complicated. So what a lot of us will do is just wing it, like, oh, I'm just going to try to remember. And as I'm trying to remember, I'm making mistakes. It's taking me twice as long. So one of the reasons someone may come here to the dashboard is to remind themselves of what to do. It's as simple as that. It's an easy place where I know I can go at any point in time and be reminded of the steps of how to do something. So someone may come here and look at a work plan for that reason. Someone may come here and look at a work plan if I'm being told to do that by my manager. So if I'm a long-term employee and I've been doing these one-on-one meetings and I'm not doing it correctly, or I'm not doing it at all, or somebody complained about a meeting that I had, or I'm unprepared for the meeting, my manager may say to me, I want you to go to the one-on-one meeting process in TouchStone and just review it and then make a note to me that you did. Just look through the tasks again. Tell me if there's a problem with any problem that you see. Remind yourself of the importance of it because it's having X, Y, and Z effect when you're not following the steps. So this is called retraining or simply management. This is what managers do. So this is a very powerful thing for a manager to be able to do. Because if I don't have something like this as a manager, then I'm just saying to that employee, you screwed it up. I'm getting complaints. What is going on? Why aren't you listening? I told you. And the employee might just be like, wow, I forgot. Like I didn't really know the steps, or I have this problem with it. And so that's the kind of management everybody hates. This kind of management is way better because I'm just simply saying, we have a procedure for this. It's right in TouchStone. You can find it in 2 seconds. Go review it. So as far as work plans go in processes, they're for training or for review. There are other tools inside of the processes that are there to be used. So let's go to another example. I'm going to go to performance review here. So here in the performance review process, you see more tools. So there's a lot of different tools have been used. By the way, if a process is documented over on the process tools page and it doesn't have a checklist in it or it doesn't have a script or a form, then here in the dashboard, it just disappears. You don't see it. So if this, you can see this process does not have a checklist in it, so I don't even see the checklist header. Also, if a process has a lot of tools in it, I can go up here to this expand collapse. This little number over here shows me how many work plans are in this process. So there are 2 work plans, there's 1 script, there's 2 uploaded files. So if a process is big, this is a good way to go and kind of look at it in a condensed view. If someone's going to use a script in a process, let's just look at the script here. They may, number 1, do this for training purposes, and this is true for all the tools. If someone's being trained, new employee training, then they're going to go to a script and they're going to practice it. They're going to memorize it. They're going to do role plays of it. They're going to literally use it and practice with it. Or a script can be used if the employee forgets how to say it. So same as work plans. If I forget the frequently asked questions, or what a particular situation comes up and I've got to call that customer or talk to that employee, this is reminding me of what to say and how to say it. And then the third example is also true with this. If you use this for management purposes, if an employee is not doing something correctly, if you think they could be better, have them go back to the script and start to memorize. Let's go back here. There are 2 uploaded files in this process. There's one for the employee master form, and then there's the manager's form. Uploaded files, if you remember, are documents that are uploaded to TouchStone. So they're either Word, PDF, PowerPoint, or Excel files. So those are the 4 acceptable file types. So if a document has been uploaded to the process, if I access it here through the control panel, so I'm going to go to this one, I click it. Now if I hit view file, this document, whatever it is going to download, and it's opening down in the bottom right hand corner of my screen. So I'm just clicking it and now it opens. So this is a Word document that's been uploaded to the process. So when I view this document in the control panel, it's showing me the master form, showing me the document that was uploaded. So in this example, I could go through and fill in all of these forms as I'm doing the review. Then the idea is I want to save this back to TouchStone, this Word document. So I would go File, Save As, and I would probably call this the employee's name. That there's no reason to date it because TouchStone's going to do all that for you, but I probably saved this as the employee's name who I was doing this review for, and I hit save. Then I can X this out. I would save. Now I'm going to re-upload this performance review form. So I put the employee's name in that I just filled out that form for. I hit upload completed file. Then I would find that file. It's right here. Hit open, and then save it. So now that completed performance review form has been saved back to TouchStone, and date and time stamped, saved with the employee's name. Now if we go back to the process, and I can get back really easily right here, just on this trail, and then we look over here in the saved folder, there's that performance review form. And if I select it and I hit view file, this saved file is now launching. And I'm going to open it just to show you. You can see the little word text I put in there. So with the uploaded files tool inside of TouchStone, you're able to view the master file, first of all, fill it out, and then re-upload it back to TouchStone. With the acceptable file types are Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, and PDF. So I'm going to tell you a little trick here for people who are a little more advanced with the uploaded files. This is a performance review form. You just saw me view it. I filled it out, and I re-uploaded it. What I could have done is I could have viewed it, filled it out in Word. So I would just take this Word document here, I would fill it out. Then I would print it. I have the employee sign it if this is a requirement, and this has a signature page. I have the employee sign it after the review is done. I scan it back into the computer, and then I upload it right here. So even though this original file is a Word document, I can still upload a PDF to this. So that's just a trick for people who want to keep signed versions of things back to TouchStone, which is a great thing to do, because as a manager, I know that every performance review I've ever done is here, and I can search for it by employee's name, and those completed files will all be here inside of TouchStone. So let's go back here. There was a client I was working with, or a user I was working with last week, and he wanted to have his employees take pictures of completed jobs when they were done. And so he's using this uploaded files tool to store those pictures. So he has an uploaded file that says, master picture, or upload picture here. That's what it was. So he created an uploaded file. He said, upload picture here. So imagine that said this right here. Then the employee would select it. They take the picture. They have to save it as a PDF on their phone, which is super easy to do. And then they just upload it right here. So right on their phones, they can do all of this. They upload the file. And now he's got a running list of all of these pictures by job. They save them as by the job, and that's all saved in TouchStone. So let's go back here. This is the document tool inside of TouchStone. So this is a performance review. It's just another version of the performance review form, but it's in the document tool. So this is the same idea as it being an uploaded file. So right here, these fields are all live now, so I can fill these out. I can put X's, so I complete this uploaded file, this document form, and then when I save it, it's the same idea. Date and time stamps it and saves a copy of this back to TouchStone. So with the document tool, either your documents are going to be a form that's filled out that you've cut and pasted in from Word. It could be a picture, like I think this one's a picture. Talks about just, some highlights for managers. So that's the document tool. The custom form tool. This is something that's widely used in the dashboard and in control panels. These forms you build on the process tools page, and they can be printed there, but they're really best used here in the dashboard, because you can see if I click on this custom form, these fields are all live now. So I can fill out this form, and it's a web form. So here I can put in text as I'm filling it out. I can do the work listing is sales follow-up. So you're putting in the work that you're reviewing, and then you give a grade, and then you can give comments. So you type in text right here. So you're filling this form out, and then when it's saved, again, it date and time stamps it and saves a copy of this form, and then it can also be printed. So that's an example of the custom form tool. If you have a policy in a process, so here's a policy right here, I think it's a good idea to have employees either in their new employee training or whenever you implement the policy to have them go to the policy here in the control panel. Go and say read and agree, and then they save it. So now, file error. When they save it, it's going to date and time stamp it, and now you'll have a record or an indication that the employee has agreed to that policy. So that's a useful thing to do as a manager, because you want to make sure the employees understand what the policies are and that they agree to them, particularly if it's a new policy. So what you can do is email everyone out in that department and say there's a new policy inside of the performance review form. I want everyone to go into their control panels, review it, make a note to me that you did. Easy enough. They go in, they click that policy, they say read and agree, and then at the end of the week, the manager runs a report over here and just verifies that everybody did it. So let's go to another example. Let's go to one that I think has a checklist in it. Okay, so here's a good example of a technique to use on the dashboard. So this is called finance checklists. So all this process is a series of 4 checklists that the the bookkeeper or the manager of admin finance in this example is responsible for completing on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis. So all the person does is select the checklist here, and then they tick off the boxes as they do this work. If I wanted to be reminded of how to update the budget, or how to create and distribute the financial statements, or how to collect the receivables, these are hyperlinks to those processes. So this is a checklist that is a series of hyperlinks. It's a verification checklist, but also if I click here, this is going to open in a second window. So let me just go back here so you see what happened. All I did was right-click my mouse, and it opens in a second window. And this is it, open. So right here, I can remind myself of how to do collections, or I can use the collections process. So here I could go watch a video of how to do collections. This would probably be for new employee training. I could go to the script and kind of have that open in front of me when I'm calling people and trying to get money that they owe. I could go down here to these documents, to this collections email. I can take it and copy all of this information and then paste it into an email and send it out. And then I could save this as the client's name that owes money. And when I save it, it's going to date and timestamp it. And if my manager ever wants to make sure that I've sent out I'm continuously sending out emails and making these phone calls to collect money, then they can run a report and see that I've done that. So I'm here doing the collections process if I need to, and then I tick off the box that that's been done. Pay bills, complete payroll. When someone's fully trained, they may not need to go to every single one of these and remind themselves of how to do it. They may already know how to do that, and they're just simply verifying that they did it. They can save this. It's going to date and timestamp it, but they could save it as the month, and then when they hit save, then a copy of this checklist is saved back to TouchStone. Here it can be printed again and emailed if that's useful, or better yet, the manager at the end of the month would go and run a report. And then the manager, my manager, the president, would know that I had done all of these accounting activities for the month, or for the week, or for the year. So this is an example of verification checklists that you can create and use on the dashboard. So let's go back and look at another example. There's some great human resource processes that we have in our library, but any one of these are just fabulous things to have and have being used inside of TouchStone. So verifying that they're used and all the information being kept in one place. So onboarding, for example. The HR manager, whoever's accountable for onboarding, sometimes in smaller companies, each manager is accountable for their own onboarding. There might be like human resource onboarding where somebody's giving them their keys and setting up their desk and stuff like that the manager might not be accountable for. But in some situations, each manager is responsible for their own onboarding and training. So they would all have this new employee onboarding process attached to their job description, and then they would be able to access it here through the dashboard. They could prepare for the new employee to come. They could go through and make sure that the onboarding, this piece of it had been done. So they tick off that all of this has been completed. They can save it as the employee's name. Anything that you save, put in the save as, is what you can search for. So think about what you would be searching for if you were looking for this onboarding checklist. Well, in this example, you're going to think of the employee's name. Sometimes it's, depending on what the process is, it could be a client's name, an employee's name. It could be an address of a location. So think about what you're going to be searching for. Let me see if I can find one more example. This is a good one. This is a key indicators process. So I think this has, here's a work plan which reminds of what the key indicators are. Then this is a document. It could be built in a custom form tool, but this one just happens to be in the document tool. So this is a form that I fill out. So I could fill this form out for this particular week or month and then save it. And then when I come back to the master form, I fill it out again for the next month and save it. And then TouchStone's keeping an ongoing record over here, if you looked in the saved, of each time I filled out that form. And when I go back to it, I then see that original form that I filled out. So let me go through another example of that, just because this one's slightly complicated. So let's say you were doing strategic planning. So here in strategic planning, you could create a document that had the strategic planning or the annual priorities. If I go here to the saved, and there's nothing there, but if I had saved something, let's go here and then I'll save this. So this could be the strategic plan for 2020, and I save it. So now it's saved as 2020 inside the strategic plan. Now if I go back and then I click this document again, now this can be for 2021. And then I can go down and change this to 2021, and then I can fill it out for 2021. And then when I save this, it's saved as 2021. So hopefully you get the point. Over here, you can then see these different saved forms. If I want to go back to 2020, I just click it here, and now I'm back to the 2020 form. So every time you select the original, like these strategic target questions, it's going to give you a copy of that original custom form, document, checklist. When you save it, it's putting that saved version over here in saved, and it keeps a running list of those. And if I want a new one, I click this again, and it gives me a new one. So there's lots of different uses for the control panel. Think about how it can be used in your situation. As a manager, I find it very useful to have documentation or verification that my employees are doing the things that they need to be doing. I find that extremely useful. Otherwise, I'm thinking about it. Did she do the finance activities for the week? Did somebody do collections? Did somebody pay the taxes? If I go and look at my finance folder, am I going to see the P&L and the balance sheet there all ready to go at the end of the month? So all of these things you want to assume that the bookkeeper is doing. When you go to look for them, if they're not there, then you've got to go back to the bookkeeper and say, where are they? So things like this, the checklists like this, are keeping the employees on track, but it's also making the management of that work easier, because you know that the bookkeeper is going to go and complete this checklist every month and have done these things. I know that that's going to be done because that person is required to go and fill out the checklist. And he knows if he ticks this off and the budget hasn't been updated, then I'm going to be the first one to come to him and say, where is it? So think about your use of this in terms of how to manage people better, how to keep your employees accountable, how to keep them on track, how to manage from afar. If you have a virtual business, this is paramount. This is just so valuable because not only are you trying to manage all the work from afar, but you can't look that person in the eyes and you can't walk into their office and see what they're doing. You have to have a way of tracking it virtually. So this kind of technology is extremely useful for that. Let's go back to the dashboard here. Someone's asking about running reports. I'm going to show that right at the end here in about 5 minutes. So that was the control panel. Employees go into this control panel to access what they're accountable for, to use items and do verification and fill out checklists and fill out forms when they're required to reference things that they've forgotten how to do. Management review is where a manager reviews the activities of their employees. So because I'm the manager of admin finance, I have these 3 people that report to me that are underneath me on the org chart. So this is how TouchStone knows who to put in management review. If I have a control panel for this position, a managerial control panel, then I'm going to have management review for these positions underneath me. If I have a control panel for this position, I'm going to have management review for all of these people underneath me. If this person has a managerial control panel, they're going to see this person underneath them. So the higher up you are on the org chart, the more you can see. The president position has management review for everybody underneath them. So even though I'm the president and I'm not necessarily managing these people, I can still look into their control panels because I have the highest level of access. Why managers would want to have management review is number 1 for training, so they can track and review that the employee is being trained or has been trained. So they can run reports and see things that these people are completing in their control panels so that they can keep notes on the work that's happening. So when I select a position here from management review, let's choose this one, I'm now going to see all of Sally's processes here that she's accountable for. The first thing I'd probably do is create groups out of them, because if any of you see this just in the default list, it just makes it much more alive and more user-friendly if you create groups. So either ask Sally to go and create groups to organize them, or the manager can do it. So here inside of Sally's control panel, I can go to a particular process. I can look over here in the saved area if I want to see what she's done in this process. I can always run a report to see what she's done, but this is another way to see it, is to go and look in the saved folder. So let's run through a real example. Let's log in as Mary here. So I'm going to go here and just remind myself what her username and password is. So it's this. So we're going to log in as Mary. And I'm going to do just an incognito window here so I can see it a little bit easier. And so let's log in as Mary. If Mary is a brand new employee and she's just being trained, when she logs into TouchStone, this is what she's going to see. So every employee, if they're not managers, when they log in, go to their dashboard, they're going to see their position right here in Control Panel. You'll notice over here, they don't have access to the 4 key functions. So the 4 key functions tab is missing. There's no reason for them to have access to that. People who are not administrators. If she goes to the org chart here, she's going to see only her box illuminated on the org chart. So all these other boxes are inaccessible by her, and she can't see the 4 functions. This is just an effort to simplify it for employees or for staff positions. So if Mary's a brand new employee, and I say to her, okay, first day of training, let's go to TouchStone, click your position here in the control panel. You'll see all of your processes organized into training weeks. So I went into my TouchStone account as her manager, and I made these groups, week 1, week 2, week 3, and I organized these processes into these training weeks. So then I explained to Mary, You're going to work on accounts receivable first. So select the process, let's go to one that actually has something in it. Go to the process and start studying the work plans. Start with the first one, how to make check deposits. Go through the steps. Familiarize yourself with them, then practice it. Total up the checks with the calculator tape. So just imagine there's a stack of checks and you're using the calculator. Fill out the deposit slip. Make sure they match. So she's reading this, she's studying it, she's practicing it if necessary. When she feels like she's got it, she goes here in the Save As and just puts done and saves it. So I explained to her in about 2 minutes how to go to her dashboard here and start to review each process. Now, the processes may have videos in them, they may have lengthy scripts, they may have audio files, or they might just be simple work plans. Whatever is in the content of the process, you're wanting that employee to go to it, just like we just did, and study each of these work plans, look at checklists that are completed, practice filling them out. If there's a video, she would watch the video and then save that as done. So she's basically verifying to me that she's gone through each of these tools inside of each process. So she does that for the first 2 days, and then she goes to accounts payable. Same thing, studies that, learns it, memorizes it. Sometimes as the manager should be required to demonstrate it to her or discuss it with her. You want to think about this as just in a traditional education format. So think about what your teachers did when you were in college or in high school even. You got a textbook. You studied and read the textbook. You may have done some worksheets in the textbook. Then you went and went to class. The teacher lectured to you. So the manager should do the same thing. Let's talk about accounts receivable. This is what it looks like. This is the software. So the manager is kind of bringing it to life by discussing it. Then there's a test usually. So use the dashboard in this way for new employee training. Have the employee go in, look at each of the processes, organize it by these weeks. This is extremely helpful to an employee. If you did this for a new employee, even if you didn't document all the work, you just documented maybe 50% of it and organize it this way, this is going to be the most fabulous training that employee probably has ever experienced. So you're taking them through a methodical training. So I'm going to log out as Mary here, and then let's go back to me. It's probably going to log me out here. So I'm logged back in as the manager. So here we go. So Mary down here has been in her control panel making notes to me about things that she's done. So I then, as the manager, go here through management review. And Mary has said to me, well, I completed this first week. I did the accounts receivable and the payables process. I would go to the accounts payables process, and first thing I can do is I can go to any one of these work plans here, like check deposits, and I can make training notes. So these inside of management review are training notes. Sometimes if this is just super simple, you can just mark her as trained, but other times if this is a longer process that may take weeks and weeks for a person to be trained in, the manager can go in and say, the first day we talked about this, you did really well, these are the things that are left to do. So this is a notes field where these training notes can be kept. So if we go back here to the accounts payable, and we're in management review now, if I look over here in this notes area, here's where I can see the different training notes that I made. When I'm happy with her training and she's demonstrated her knowledge of accounts payable, I can flip this little flag that says Train All. And when she logs into TouchStone, she'll see this green check mark next to this process. So halfway through the week, she's done with this, and then we go on to this, and then I tick her off with a green check mark. So this is just assigned to her, to me, and to anyone else who has access to look at this, that she's been trained. So the manager tracks the training through through management review for new employee training. And that is, one of the coolest things about management review is being able to track new employee training. Another way that a manager would use management review is if they've have an issue with an employee, and we talked about this at length in the regarding the control panel. But if I have an issue with an employee and I want them to review something, go back and study something, make notes to me about how something can be different, if Mary's here in her dashboard doing all that, then I can go and look at it through management review. So you can always go into the control panel or into management review, choose a process, and then look over here in the saved folder to see what's being saved. But the best way to do that is really through the reports. So through reports, you have a lens into your own control panel and what you've done inside of it, and if you're a manager, into management review. So the control panel reports allow you to see what you've completed in your own control panel. So you can choose a date range, and I'm just going to choose today. Let's make it yesterday. You can choose a date range, which gives you a week that you're looking for, or even a day. You can search the save as. So this is why I was saying the save as title, or what you put in the save as is what you can search for. So you can type it right in here. You can position is when you have multiple control panels. So sometimes people fill multiple boxes on the chart and they'll have multiple control panels. In this situation, it's not necessary because I only have one. Or you can choose process tool type as well. When you hit run report, you're then going to see a list of what you've searched for. So here I marked done on this. This shows you what the process tool is. This is the one-on-one meeting manager work plan in the one-on-one meetings process. So these little gray trails kind of show you what the tool's name is and then what the process name is. And then this is the save as right here. And then you see the date and time it was completed. So here's that employee performance review that we did. So here you can search with a date range, you can search for a subject for what it was saved as, or you can search for process tool type. So let's go to management reports. So in management reports, this allows me again to look into the control panels of the people I manage. So in Mary's situation, when she's being trained, I may run a report at the end of the week, and I'm going to search just for her. User type shows you these are my 3 employees. So that's the user name. And then I'll do the date range again. So I'm looking for what she's completed as far as her training goes. And if I hit run report, then I'm going to see this one thing that we saved. And I had her save it as done. So now this is a sign to me that, or it's an indication to me that she's finished or says she's done with the check deposits work plan in the accounts payable process. And then here's Mary's name. So this management review report allows you to review rather quickly if you're doing new employee training, what your employees have done, if they're on track. If I click this, it also takes me to the work plan that she's finished. And I can print it from here too if I want to. You can also run management reports for all of the employees at once. So I'm just going to give this a date range. I'm going to get a longer date range. And then I can search the save as, or if I don't choose user, it's going to show me what all 3 of these people have done for this date range. If I hit run report, then I'm going to see what they've done. And I don't have any data inside those other 2 management review accounts, but so you see the same one here. Let me make it a little longer to see if I've got something more in there. So I back this up to November 2019. Let's see if it gives me more. Yeah. So here I can see this is Mary's work plan she did. This is one Sally did on November 21st. These are checklists that were done, scripts that were done. Here's a policy that Sally agreed to on November 21st, says read and agree in the save as. Here's training videos that Mary has went through and marked that she's done with these. So use this management report to make sure that the employees are doing what you've told them to do in their control panels. Again, that can be for new employee training, like in this example of Mary. It can be if you have an employee who's not following a policy or they're not following a process, and you can say, go to your control panel, go to that process, read that policy again, mark it, save it as read and agree so I know that you've looked at it, watch this video again, review that work plan. The employee goes in, marks it as did it, and then you run a report and see that it's done. And obviously, this is where a manager would also go to make sure that checklists and forms that were being completed and done. So if you have checklists that your employees are doing weekly for you or monthly or you want them to be, then at the end of the week, do a date range report. You can search for everybody or just the individual person that is supposed to be doing the checklist. Even process tool type will refine it even more. Choose checklist, and then just make sure they're there. If these are supposed to be done every week, look at the date. Make sure it's done every week. If it's supposed to be done every day, look at the employee's name, and then look at the dates. If one's missing, go right back to that employee and say, where's that checklist? You missed it on Friday. It's really important that you do them for X, Y, and Z reason. Please do it. Give the employee, if you're diligent about that, at the second time that it's not there after you've asked it, then you've got a performance issue that needs bigger, it needs a bigger conversation. But generally speaking, employees are pretty compliant with stuff like this. They know you're looking. You may look at it just to make sure it's there, but if there's a problem and you need to go back, then it's really important. Or if you're quantifying how things are done, when they are done, the time it's taking, who's more efficient, that's really important. So the manager is the one who makes sure that the processes are being used. And this management report and the use of the management review and the control panel here on the dashboard is all about that. So I've got some questions, and I know we're out of time, so I'm going to email people directly about the questions you asked. If the reports wasn't thorough enough, I can step through it with you, John, if you're wanting to do that. I'm happy to do that anytime. This was like a breeze into the whole dashboard. Even though it was an hour, it's not covering absolutely everything. The best way to figure out how this is going to work for you is just to start to use it. Think of one process that you can start to use right away. All the processes don't have to be documented in order for you to start using the control panel. So managers can start using it quite easily just by downloading library processes, performance review, coaching and training, warnings, one-on-one meetings. Those 4 processes you can download from the library and start to use them. If you're an owner on the line or a manager of managers, get your managers to start doing this. They're doing this anyway to a certain degree. They're probably attempting to do performance reviews. They're probably saved all over the place. They're attempting to have meetings. They're attempting to coach and train. This is just a way of solidifying it. And having them do it here on the dashboard gets them practice, shows them, makes your job easier because if you want to find anything related to any of this for any employee, it's always going to be here, searchable through a report. And once the managers get their feet wet with this, they can then push it down to their employees. If they're using it successfully, then they see the value of it more, and it's easier for them to explain and get their employees to use. This little situation here, this like finance checklist, this is huge for management of a department. Maybe you have a version of this that you want to use for any of the departments. This is simple for someone to go in, they click the checklist, they go weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, and complete those checklists. It doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming 50-item checklist that's just really hard to use. Make it simple. This kind of thing, if done week after week, month after month, the light bulbs are going to start to go off, particularly for the people who really need that information, which is all of these people. So again, think about your individual situation and what would be the most impactful. But if there's one takeaway from this whole session, from all 7 of these sessions, the takeaway should be use the documentation, require your employees to use it. Otherwise, this is just a strategic exercise that is going to fall apart eventually. Get your employees to use the processes, and that's all done through these tools on the dashboard. Managers are the ones that require the employees to use them. Once you are successful with that, it all comes together. Trust me, I've seen this hundreds and hundreds of times. It all comes together once you push it from the top down. And once you have it working, then the value of it just starts to really reveal itself. Thanks for coming, everybody. Also, remember the Resource Center here. There's a ton of information here in the Resource Center that I think is valuable for everyone. You can always find the recorded versions of these webinars right here under Technical Training. So all I did was go to the Resource Center, homepage, webinars, Technical Training. These are the most current sessions that we just had. So sometime in the next few days, number 7 here will be replaced with this one that just happened today. So remember, you can go back and review, or if you want any other employees in your company to kind of learn any of these topics, they can come here and watch these webinars at any time.